talked to Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration attorney in Texas.
It's a new year, but it seems like the governor of Texas continues with the attack on migrants coming across the border. His latest attack now is sending migrants to other states by plane. And I know we were going to talk about the immigration law, but I have to ask you about this. Is that legal, and why? And how is he talking migrants into getting on these planes to do this?
Yeah, I mean, typically what happens, I haven't been there for the conversations with these migrants, but there's been a lot of this stuff for over the last couple of years. And typically what happens is, DeSantis or Abbott will pay for, with taxpayer money, privately chartered flights or buses, and they will go and find migrants who have been processed into the country, and they'll just invite them to get on a plane. And the migrants, many of them don't understand what's going on, and they get tricked and they get taken out of process, and it's not great for them. But it is voluntary. This is not a, detention thing. This is a, hey, we paid for this bus, does anybody want to get on it situation.
And are they given any type of food or water or drink on these flights or on these bus rides, or are they just just every man for himself?
My guess is that they have basic necessities. I don't know the answer to that question. I think that the real the problematic issue with what they're doing, from my perspective, is that it's a political stunt. It's using these migrants to get attention for Greg Abbott, for his, campaign coffers, for his reelection, for his political power. That's why he does these things. It doesn't actually, achieve an end result that he's after. And in the meantime, he's spending Texas taxpayer dollars. I mean, Operation Lone Star has spent over $10 billion last year, which is 1/6 of the state's educational budget overall. It's a massive amount of money, and all of their actions result in fewer than 1% of the border apprehensions. So it's not even effective. It's a waste of money. And then the other problem that these things create is it takes migrants out of their natural flow. So typically what happens is people come in, they get processed, and they're going to live with a relative or a friend, and they have somewhere to go, and there's just a system by which they get to where they're going. Many of them are not staying in Texas. But what these buses do is they deliberately take groups of migrants to some other location in order to wreak havoc. So we're going to just drop a bunch of migrants off in Washington, D.C., in Denver, in Chicago, in a city that is a Democratic city, so that they, too, will feel the pain of immigration. That's really, the point. And then it makes it look like, nationally we have this migrant problem, when in fact the whole thing is just a planned stunt by Greg Abbott to cause problems, where if we just left these migrants alone, they would get themselves to their own locations.
And now, yesterday we had the Speaker of the House come down with GOP representatives to try to make this a case against the Biden administration that it's his fault. When in actuality, immigration, he goes back to trying to come up with a simple solution to immigration.
Yeah, I mean, immigration is such a hot issue that it's such a powerful word politically that it is utilized by conservatives and Republicans to fearmonger, because there are a lot of people out there, they see a news report about a border surge with a bunch of migrants, and they get really scared about it. They think that there's this huge problem and we must stop it, right? It's an easy button for a politician to push. In fact, I was just down at the border last week or the week before, and there's all of these reports about the migrant surge, et cetera, going on. When I got there was a group of migrants who were in this field just positioned so that the media could park up above and have this sort of perfect viewpoint of it, and then Border Patrol carried out a podium so that a congressman could come and give a press conference with the migrants behind them. And the whole thing is a political theater. And so it's just, Democrats who, see the reality, or anybody who sees the reality for what it is, which is that immigration is not a bad word. Immigration is a good word. that in this country we need immigrants. We have an aging population. We have a need for immigrant labor, desperate. And that people who understand that this, immigration needs to occur are up against people who are using immigration to empower themselves and to spread fear among voters and their base of supporters. And so it's really a no-win situation, because how are we going to find a compromise when one of the parties benefits so greatly from not allowing any movement on the immigration front?
And added to that, this fear now of the shutdown, and what the Republicans are wanting now is the same thing of the Trump administration, adding walls and borders and more security on the border, as they say.
Right. That's right. I mean, that's what Republicans are willing to spend money on, is border enforcement, not immigration overhaul, which is desperately needed. The fact is that the border is not porous. The border is really fortified. And we really need in this country a better immigration system that takes care of the needs of our economy, so that people can come here and work on all levels of the skill spectrum, so that there's a way for undocumented people to come out of the shadows. They could even pay a fine. That would be a lot of revenue generated for the government. There's just a lot of reasons why immigration reform is a good idea. But until, in my opinion, until the economy gets bad enough, we're not going to see the two sides come together on this issue. They're going to let it get really, really bad before they do anything about it.
Speaking of bad, this new bill that Greg Abbott passed, it's called this Immigration Senate Bill 4, Texas Senate Bill 4, authorizes state officials, state law enforcement to deport migrants. And isn't that racial profiling? Because actually, it's if I'm black or if I'm white, I'm not gonna, I don't have to worry about them pulling me over and asking me for immigration papers, or such thing. But if I'm brown, it's more of a chance of me being pulled over and asked those type of questions.
For sure.
So isn't this racial profiling, and how is this being even thought of in Texas? Yes.
Yeah, I think there's no way that an officer in the interior of the state, absent watching someone walk across the border, how else does one obtain probable cause that someone has entered the country illegally? There's just, there's no way to do it except to racially profile. And that those issues were raised in the Senate committee when they were discussing the bill, but they didn't care. They passed it through the committee and passed it through the legislature. But it's going to be a problem. I mean, and the DOJ has already filed a lawsuit. The ACLU has already filed a lawsuit. So the federal courts are going to be looking at this law before March 6th, and we'll see what happens in the courts.
It seems like it's not that the outrage is out there, but it's not as much outrage as I thought it would be, because this is something that's I think not just on a legal matter. Just being a normal American, should be outraged about this.
Yep. I mean, that's going to be the main issue in the lawsuit, is that the state is overstepping its authority, into federal jurisdiction. And we'll see what the courts say. There's different provisions of the law. There's one that creates a crime for entering the country illegally. There's one that creates an even more severe crime for failing to depart. And then there's the part that allows law enforcement officers or police officers to arrest people for entering illegally. And, the SB 1070 was a sort of another harsh anti-immigrant law that was in Arizona over 13 years ago, and the Supreme Court reviewed that law, and they cut most of it. They said most of it was unconstitutional, but the portion that they allowed was what they call the show me your papers portion, which is the part that says law enforcement officers can ask people about their immigration status, or to prove it, right, that they have legal status. So in all likelihood, we'll see something along those lines, in the Texas law, where portions of it are allowed, portions of it are disallowed or enjoined while the case is making its way through the court. And probably all of that's going to be hammered out before March. But meanwhile, of course, all of my clients, I talk to immigrants all the time, and they've all heard about the law. They're all very nervous about the law. Many people are considering leaving the state. The economy of the state is going to be impacted. It's just bad deal all the way around. But again, Greg Abbott sure is getting a ton of attention for the passage or the signage of this law.
That was Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration attorney out of Austin, Texas.